No one ever reflects on time past and says, I'm so glad that I didn't take action, that I didn't try. I'm such a better human being because I didn't move my body and stretch my mind. Always putting comfort first and doing as little as possible. I'm proud of myself for stringing as many quick pleasures together as I could. It was the best decision I ever made. I feel amazing. Short-term pleasures don't last, but they accumulate into long-term pain. Short-term pains don't last either, but they accumulate into long-term pleasure. Peace, serenity, pride, and satisfaction, the things that wash over us and bring us true comfort, are all on the other side of facing and surviving discomfort through effort.
My name is Mitch Gourley. I'm a 28-year-old firefighter from Ontario, Canada. I've been a professional firefighter for the last 8 years, but I've been firefighting in some capacity for the last 10. I started as a firefighter in the community that I grew up in when I was 18 years old, and quite frankly, the fire service is something that has always been in my life. My dad was a firefighter. His dad before him was a firefighter, which makes me a third-generation firefighter, and it's something that I'm extremely proud to do. When I was born, my dad actually left his recruit training to come to the hospital. He missed my birth, unfortunately, but he was actually at recruit training with his dad as his training officer, and he just missed my birth. So there's a great picture of my dad holding me with his helmet and his bunker gear still on as he had just left training. Knowing what we know now about contaminated gear and all that stuff probably wasn't the greatest thing that my dad was holding me, a freshly born baby in his gear, but yeah, bunker gear in the fire service has been a part of my life since the very beginning. I found with myself personally as someone who was always striving and working towards the next big thing. When I had been on the fire service for a couple of years and I had got my first house and I had met my lovely wife, and I kind of had checked all the big boxes, all the things that I felt in my mind that I needed to be happy. There was, you know, a great sense of kind of longing, and I felt a little bit directionless. I think there was, you know, some things that I was working through emotionally, you know, involving my mental health that were also kind of cropping up after I was on the job for a couple years. I think the job definitely, you know, maybe was playing a role, but I think that there were some other things, you know, at play that I needed to work through. Unfortunately at the time, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, but at the time I don't think I was really coping well. I didn't really have the skills and knowledge I needed to work through those uncomfortable emotions. So, you know, I felt like I was turning to things like alcohol to, you know, kind of cope and numb and feel better. And as a younger guy in his, you know, mid to early 20s, I was just telling myself like, hey, I'm doing this just because I'm having a good time and, you know, being life of the party. But I think deep down, it was an escape for me. You know, during that time, I had kind of let my fitness slip. I had gained some weight. My diet wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. What I decided to do is just like, you know, you look on how to change your life. I was like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon or do something like that. And that's exactly what I did, is I decided I was going to run a marathon. That is honestly where my life changed. This sounds super cliche. Running saved my life in the sense of just allowing me to, you know, find a new lease on life, a new sense of passion, a new sense of drive that I feel had kind of gone into hibernation the last couple years. Because what happened when I started training for the marathon is a lot of things started to, you know, change for the better. I dialed my nutrition back in. I was working out consistently. All that time alone, all that solitude when I was out on my morning runs, I think allowed me the opportunity to really start to look inwards, really look at the last couple years and maybe sort of try to figure out why I had gotten in that rut. And in that effort of trying to progress myself physically, I really started to work on my mental health. You know, started to understand things like meditation and mindfulness, understand psychology and neuroscience, to really understand why I was thinking and feeling the way I was. Because I think what a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of humans share a very, very similar experience, and there's a lot of great material out there that you can, you know, kind of dive into to understand yourself better. And above all else, if people feel the need that they need to seek professional help, then that's definitely an option as well. So it was amazing, this kind of trivial, you know, pursuit of running a marathon basically allowed me to do 100% of a 180 with my life. Physically, mentally, nutrition side, everything changed for me. I stopped drinking because waking up in the morning for an early run wasn't really conducive to having a bunch of beers the night before, and ultimately led me where I'm at today with the business and organization that I run, Everyday Heroes, where I empower first responders just like myself to prioritize their physical and mental health, because I had been in the depths, I had seen the darkness, and using the tools and strategies that I implemented, I wanted to share that knowledge with other first responders so they didn't have to go through that adversity that I did. Although it was very difficult, I think one of the true signs of healing is being able to retrospectively look back at your experience and be so grateful for it. I wouldn't have traded those dark days for anything, because ultimately it led me to the man that's sitting in this chair today. And I don't think I would have been half the person I am today if it wasn't for, the struggle that I had to go through. A lot of what drives me is a sense of inferiority and having to prove myself. I feel like when I grew up, I was never super talented as an athlete. I was never the greatest looking guy. There's a lot of things that didn't come to me naturally, and I always had to work for them. I kind of had a bit of a pity party, and I felt that life was happening to me, and I got in that kind of rut we mentioned about earlier. When I kind of made these positive changes, and knowing where I'd come from, I wanted to get the absolute most out of this experience. And a big part of that is just going for these things, whether it be a marathon or an Ironman or starting your own business or being vulnerable on the internet with other people. I stopped getting out of that kind of self-centered mindset of like it being all about me and wanting to help others and really leave things better than I found them. This is something that I don't think is really talked about, or you'd probably be laughed out of the kitchen if you mentioned it, is self-love. There's no greater commitment to self-love than doing things for yourself and wanting to be more and wanting to be your best. As first responders especially, we give so much. We, whether it's the people we serve, volunteering, all that stuff, and we love to do it, but I think a lot of times, especially with people with kids, you give to all these other people and you don't give enough to yourself. And if you're not filling your cup, then I don't think you're able to show up as your best self. So yeah, for me, the desire to start these things and to make that change was just to prove it to myself, make my family proud, make the people around me proud, and ultimately get to a place in my life where I was happy and content. What I found with implementing all these tools and having all these strategies in place is that I have become 4, 5, 10 times the person I am now because of the adversity and the strategies that I've implemented. We don't need to work on our mental health just to get by. We need to work on our mental health so we can thrive in every aspect of life. I don't want you to go home and, not be miserable. I don't want not being miserable or not being upset or not being anxious or not being angry or depressed. I don't want that to be the baseline. I want you to go home and be able to be the best, most authentic expression of yourself. I want you to kick ass in every aspect of your life. I want you to be a kick-ass dad. I want you to be kick-ass in the gym. I want you to be a kick-ass husband that loves his wife. And I know these are all things that are so cheesy and what the hell is this guy talking about, and spirituality this and mindfulness. It's you can laugh and point the finger all you want, but one recurring thing that I see using myself as this vulnerable person is I'm getting those text messages and those calls the next day being hey Mitch, what was that book you mentioned? Or hey Mitch, what was that podcast you listened to? Hey dude, what you said today really resonated with me. I wanted to mention this, this, and this to you. That is the stuff that really, drives this home for me, is that everyone, or a lot of people that I work with are going through very similar experiences. And one thing we have to realize as first responders is we have all the other stressors of everyday life that every other person experiences, and they have a hard time. Statistically, a lot of people have a hard time. And we have this big, massive slab of difficulty and adversity and trauma stacked on top. So we need to do these things proactively to live our best life. Once you've been through the shit and you've came out on the other side, you want to grab your coworkers, you want to grab people by their shoulders and be like, you gotta listen to this, because your quality of life gets so much better. I want everyone to know, like, hey, like, this is possible. I've been through it. I go online and I show and portray myself as this like Iron Man, firefighter, mental health advocate. But the truth was, like, there was a time in my life when I was the complete opposite of that. There was a time in my life when I was looking for individuals like me now to give me hope. There's a police officer, a paramedic, a firefighter version of you that is just, you know, that next level. You know, they are emotionally intelligent, they're sympathetic, they're in good shape. You know, once you start to level up all these things, and this sounds so cheesy and garbage, but like, you unlock like the superhero within you, and I think we all have that superhero. And you know, sometimes, you know, Batman or Superman's cape gets some dirt on it, sometimes someone pukes on it or whatever, but we all have it in us. We just gotta, you know, make the steps in towards making these realizations and bringing that person to life.